January 23, 1943, Eglin Field, Proving Ground, Florida. The morning air was shockingly cold, just 14 degrees Fahrenheit, far below what anyone expected in the Florida Panhandle. Samuel Green stood beside a weapon that had failed again, its 17th malfunction in just 2 hours. The Browning M2.50 caliber machine gun, the main gun used on American aircraft, sat frozen and useless. A thin stream of steam rose from the barrel, a quiet reminder how badly it was performing in the cold. Major Robert Johnson from the Army Air Force's Armament Lab threw his clipboard down in frustration. "This is impossible, Green," he snapped. "We got 423 B-17s in England, each carrying 13 of these guns. That's 5,499 weapons that'll freeze solid above 20,000 feet. When they work, our bombers shoot down the enemy 3-1. When they don't, our men are sitting ducks." Green, a 52-year-old civilian toolmaker from Connecticut, had never finished high school, never served in the military, and had never designed a weapon in his life. Yet he stared at the jam gun with a mix of curiosity and determination. The Army's top engineers had declared the issue unsolvable. Browning's own designers had already tried every standard fix. Still, the gun refused to work in freezing air, leaving American crews over Germany defenseless. He quietly took out his small notebook and wrote a single line that would change how automatic weapons were built around the world. "The problem isn't the gun. The problem is that we're forcing it to work how we think it should, instead of learning how it wants to work." Major Johnson frowned. "That makes no sense, Green. This is an engineered weapon. It follows physics. We have data, test results, calculations." Green pulled out a War Machinist file. "With respect, Major, math didn't make this gun. John Browning did by feel. That's what I understand. Give me 1 week, and let me modify it however I need to. I'll make sure it never jams again." Neither man realized this conversation would lead to one of the most controversial changes in U.S. weapons history. Within 3 months, Green's unorthodox fix would turn the temperamental .50 caliber Browning into the most reliable machine gun ever made. Within 6 months, his work would save thousands of American airmen. The Browning M2.50 caliber was John Moses Browning's final masterpiece, designed in 1918. By the early 1940s, it had become standard across the entire U.S. military, mounted on bombers, fighters, trucks, tanks, and ships. But combat revealed a deadly flaw. At high altitudes above 20,000 feet, where temperatures dropped to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, the guns froze and jammed again and again. In late 1942, the statistics were alarming. Out of 213 B-17 missions flown, 161 reported weapon failures, a 76% malfunction rate. Each bomber averaged nearly 5 jam guns out of 13. German pilots quickly noticed, attacking bombers whose guns went silent. In December alone, 14 B-17s were shot down after losing all defensive firepower, costing 140 American airmen their lives. The Army Ordnance Department launched an urgent investigation. Engineers discovered several causes. Lubricants thickened in the cold, metal parts shrank and seized, and moisture inside the gun froze solid. From October 1942 through January 1943, they tested every conventional fix: special oils, tighter ammunition tolerances, heating coils, wider gaps, but nothing worked. The failure rate stayed above 60%, and $2 million were already spent with almost no progress. That's when Samuel Green entered the picture. A lifelong toolmaker at Pratt Whitney in Connecticut, he had spent 37 years building precision gauges used to craft aircraft engines. When his company began producing the Browning M2 under contract, their own test guns jammed in the cold, setting the stage for Green's unlikely breakthrough. The plant manager, desperate for an answer, offered a $1,000 bonus to anyone who could fix the jamming. He insisted the Browning design was perfect and that the fault had to be something outside the gun. Green didn't agree. After 37 years making tools, he knew no design was truly perfect. Parts showed their faults only in real use, not on paper. That evening, Green tore a failed gun down to its smallest pieces and measured everything. All dimensions were within spec, yet the gun still jammed. As he reassembled the bolt carrier by hand, he felt a tiny, almost invisible tight spot in the channel. The surface looked flawless, but the channel had a minuscule bend, less than 2/10,000th of an inch over a foot. In warm weather, that error was harmless. With thick and cold lubricant, it could stop the bolt from moving. In his basement workshop, Green took a precision file and removed a hair's breadth of metal from the bolt carrier, about 3/10,000ths of an inch. That meant the bolt ran looser than the drawings allowed. By engineering rules, he had broken the specs. By his judgment, he had given the bolt the room it needed to keep moving despite tiny flaws. At the test range the next day, the modified gun spent hours in a minus 30-degree F cold chamber, then fired. It ran without a single jam through hundreds of rounds. The range officer was stunned and worried. Green had changed a military weapon without authorization and had altered dimensions outside official tolerances. Green answered calmly, "The specs make a weapon that jams. My change makes a weapon that works." The plant manager and Captain Robert Mitchell, the Army Ordnance Liaison, argued over procedure. Mitchell worried about safety and rules, but the manager pushed to confirm whether Green's change actually fixed the problem. Mitchell agreed to send the gun to Eglin Field for full testing. Major Johnson was skeptical, but had to try anything. In extreme, trials of modified gun performed brilliantly. 2,000 rounds with no failures, cold chamber tests at minus 50-degree F with no jams, and continued firing even when deliberately fouled with sand and dirt. Johnson asked Green to come to Eglin Field to explain his work. When Green arrived, the meeting was tense. Present were Major Johnson, 3 ordnance engineers from Aberdeen Proving Ground, and 2 Browning representatives. Johnson opened by noting the results. Green's gun ran reliably where standard guns failed most of the time. He asked Green to explain his change. Green drew a simple sketch and said it made the bolt carrier slightly smaller, about 3/10,000ths of an inch, so it could move freely even if the channel wasn't perfectly straight or if cold tightened everything up. An Aberdeen engineer with a doctor objected that larger clearances broke accepted design rules and should degrade performance. Green listened and replied plainly that he didn't understand their complex math, but he did understand machines from decades of hands-on work. The math said his change shouldn't work, but in practice it did. The room erupted into argument until Major Johnson cut in. The math debate didn't matter right now. American airmen were dying because of this crisis. Green had produced a workable fix. The task now was to see if it could be applied to all M2 guns and rolled out safely. This channel celebrates the stories of ordinary people who changed the course of war, and Samuel Green's impact was just beginning to show. By February 1st, 1943, full-scale testing began. Green personally modified 20 M2 machine guns made by 3 different companies. Each gun went through brutal trials: standard firing, freezing tests at minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 5,000-round endurance runs, deliberate fouling with sand and grime, and even simulated high-altitude tests at 30,000 feet. Every single weapon performed almost flawlessly. The malfunction rate dropped to less than 1%, compared to usual 68% failure under the same conditions. Green's simple fix had reduced cold weather failures by 99%, but turning his idea into military-wide action was a huge challenge. By early 1943, there were nearly 100,000 Browning M2s already in service, and another 60,000 still being built. The Ordnance Department estimated that upgrading all of them would take 18 months and $12 million. Top generals like Leslie McNair and Henry Hap Arnold demanded immediate rollout, but the bureaucracy wanted more testing. That changed when Lieutenant General William Knudsen, head of war production, visited Eglin Field himself. After seeing Green's modified guns fire perfectly, he asked 2 questions. Could trained armorers apply the fix quickly to guns already in use? And could production lines adjust without delays? Green said yes to both. It took about 45 minutes per gun, and factories only needed to machine one part slightly differently. Knudsen made the decision on the spot. Full, immediate implementation. Every existing gun would be upgraded during routine maintenance, and all new production would follow the new standard. The change was officially labeled Modification 743, but everyone soon called it Green's Fix. Within a week, detailed instructions went out to all U.S. armories. 2 weeks later, Factories had already updated their tools. Within a month, mobile teams were modifying guns at air bases across the U.S. and England. In just 3 months, over 40,000 weapons were updated. By summer, all 96,000 Browning M2s carried Green's modification. The results were dramatic. In March 1943, before the fix, 57% of bomber missions reported gun malfunctions. By April, with only a third of the fleet updated, the number dropped to 38%. By June, failures fell below 4%. Bomber loss rates tied to gun jams plummeted, from 14 aircraft down in early 1943 to just 2 after the modification spread. Green's fix was saving American lives. Even German pilots noticed. Captured Luftwaffe reports from mid-1943 noted that American bombers now maintained steady defensive fire throughout attacks, previous patterns of weapon failure no longer observed. It was suddenly far more dangerous to attack a U.S. bomber formation. The improvement wasn't limited to the air. Tank crews reported their .50 calories ran smoothly in dust and mud. Infantry units said their heavy machine guns needed far less maintenance. In the Pacific, Navy ships saw fewer gun jams during anti-aircraft battles, a critical advantage against kamikaze attacks. One of the most famous examples came on November 2, 1943. Captain Robert Johnson of the 56th Fighter Group was hit by enemy cannon fire, 21 cannon strikes, and over 100 machine gun hits. Despite the damage, his guns kept firing. Engineers later confirmed that without Green's modification, his weapons would have jammed and he likely wouldn't have survived. Johnson went on to become one of America's top aces with 27 victories. Green's idea went far beyond one weapon. His principle, building machines with enough tolerance to handle real-world conditions, reshaped how American weapons were designed. Future firearms like the M60 machine gun and M16 rifle used similar design logic, focusing on reliability over theoretical precision. In April 1943, Samuel Green received a Medal for Merit from General Henry Arnold. The citation praised his extraordinary achievement in weapons development and credited him with saving countless American lives. But Green, ever modest, remained uneasy with the spotlight, still more at home with his tools and with medals. Samuel Green only attended the medal ceremony because General Arnold personally asked him to. He accepted the Medal for Merit quietly, gave a short thank you, refused interviews, and went straight back to his job at Pratt Whitney in Hartford. According to co-workers, he showed the medal once, then placed it in his desk drawer, where it stayed until his retirement in 1951. Over the years, Green received hundreds of letters from servicemen whose lives were saved by his modification. He kept every one of them in a wooden box in his basement. One letter, from Staff Sergeant Michael Chun, a gunner on a B-17, arrived in July 1943. Mr. Green, our plane was attacked by 6 German fighters last week. All 13 guns worked perfectly. We shot down 2 and damaged 3 more. Before your fix, at least half would have jammed. We'd probably be dead now. Because of you, we came home. Thank you for giving us guns we can trust. A later military review revealed the scale of Green's impact. The Army Ordnance Department had spent more than $2 million in 5 months trying to solve the cold weather jamming problem through conventional methods, all which failed. Green solved it in 1 week using nothing but hand tools. A 1946 War Department study concluded that those delays cost roughly 64 bombers and 640 airmen, along with many ground losses. The report urged the military to welcome ideas from outsiders and unconventional thinkers in the future. Green continued working at Pratt Whitney until 1956, solving production challenges and mentoring young toolmakers. He rarely mentioned his medal. When people asked, he'd simply say, "I fixed a gun that wasn't working right." That's what toolmakers do. He passed away in 1971 at age 80. His obituary briefly mentioned his career in the Medal for Merit, but made no note that his design change had been built into over 500,000 M2 machine guns, or that his principle of operational tolerance became a foundation for every American automatic weapon designed after. And that was exactly how Green would have wanted it. The Browning M2.50 caliber machine gun is still in active service today. As of 2024, it remains standard for U.S. forces and more than 100 allied nations. Modern M2S still use the same clearance adjustments based on Green's original modification. It has been in production since 1921, making it the longest-serving machine gun in U.S. history. Its unmatched reliability tracing directly to Green's basement experiment. More than 3 million M2S have been produced, with about 2.1 million incorporating Green's modification. Every generation of American soldiers since World War II, through Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, has relied on weapons at work because a civilian toolmaker once filed a bolt carrier in his basement. His method later became official training for all U.S. military armorers. Every armor school teaches the same principle. Test how the weapon actually performs, not just how it measures on paper. Green's legacy is more than a fix. It's a reminder that real progress often comes from people who think differently. As General Knudsen later wrote in his memoir, the military must always be ready to recognize innovation, no matter where it comes from. Brilliant ideas often come from the most unexpected people. Our real task is recognizing them, not dismissing them because of titles or credentials. In 1988, the Smithsonian opened an exhibit honoring civilians who had shaped military technology during World War II. Samuel Green was featured at the center of it. His original notebook hand tools and the first modified bolt carrier were displayed, along with his Medal for Merit donated by his family. Letters from soldiers who credited his work with saving their lives filled the case beside it. Over 3 million people visited the exhibit, finally giving Green the recognition he never sought but always deserved. 17 years after his death, modern military research still carries his influence. Agencies like DARPA now actively seek creative solutions from outsiders. The Army Research Laboratory runs programs that invite civilian engineers to tackle military challenges. At the Army Ordnance School, Green's story and modification are taught as classic examples of how practical innovation can come from ordinary people. Within the weapons community, Green's memory endures. Instructors remind new armorers of Green's rule: measure twice, file once, test thoroughly. The annual Green Award now honors those who achieve meaningful improvements through simple, practical ideas. Looking back, historians note two truths. Green's fix was elegant, fast, and life-saving, but was needed only because the system failed first. Strict rules, rigid specifications, and skepticism toward non-traditional ideas nearly cost hundreds more lives. It took a civilian with no formal engineering degree to show that the solution had been right in front of them all along. Today, every time a .50 caliber machine gun fires flawlessly, whether in Arctic cold, desert heat, or tropical humidity, that reliability traces back to Samuel Green. When special forces depend on their weapons under impossible conditions, they trust the principles he proved true in his basement workshop. Samuel Green never sought fame. He lived simply, worked quietly, and changed history by solving a single deadly problem. His story reminds us that real progress often comes from people who refuse to accept good enough. It shows that practical wisdom can outmatch theory, that results matter more than reputation. The math says it all. Before Green's fix, M2 machine guns failed 68% of the time in freezing conditions. After his modification, that number dropped to 0.8%. The difference? Thousands of airmen who came home. Thousands of families spared from loss. One of those guns, serial number 43 to 27,891, hangs in the Smithsonian today. It fired more than 80,000 rounds in combat without a single jam. The placard lists its service record, but not the name of the Connecticut toolmaker who made it possible. Yet armorers remember. Veterans remember. Anyone who's relied on a .50 cal that never failed carries Samuel Green's legacy forward. He proved that sometimes the smartest fix breaks the rules, that expertise can come without credentials, and that solving the problem matters more than protecting the system. Samuel Green, the civilian toolmaker who made America's .50 caliber machine gun never jam, became one of the quiet heroes who helped win World War II. Samuel Green's story stands as one of the most powerful examples of how quiet determination and practical skill can change the course of history. He wasn't a general, a scientist, or a decorated engineer. He was a humble toolmaker who refused to accept that perfect on paper was good enough when lives were at stake. His fix to the Browning .50 caliber machine gun didn't just repair a malfunctioning weapon. It restored the confidence of airmen, soldiers, and sailors who depended on it in the harshest conditions imaginable. What makes Green's achievement so remarkable isn't only the technical success, it's how he accomplished it. With nothing more than a machinist's file, patience, and a willingness to trust his own instincts, he solved a problem that the nation's top laboratories couldn't fix with millions of dollars and months of testing. His simple adjustment, giving the gun just enough tolerance to keep moving in extreme cold, redefined how American weapons would be designed forever. Green's principle of operational tolerance became a foundation of modern engineering, built for the real world, not the drawing board. That lesson spread far beyond weapon design, influencing how industries from aviation to manufacturing think about reliability and performance. But perhaps the greatest legacy is human, not mechanical. Every bomber crew that made a home, every soldier who returned safely from battle, and every mission that succeeded because the gun didn't jam, all trace back to one man's insistence on listening to the machine instead of his ego. Today, Green's name may not appear in textbooks beside the great inventors, but his fingerprints are still on every .50 caliber round fired in defense of freedom. The weapon that bears his quiet genius remains in service across the world, reliable, rugged, and battle-proven under every condition. His story reminds us that innovation doesn't always come from authority, but from courage. The courage to challenge assumptions, to test what others call impossible, and to keep working until it's right. In the end, Samuel Green didn't just make a gun that never jammed. He proved that one person, guided by skill and conviction, can leave a legacy that outlasts every weapon, every war, and every generation that follows.